Hey y'all, I hope you're doing well. With all the debate going on about the New World Open Beta, and if the launch should be delayed, if Amazon Games committed a crime with PvP scaling, and so much more, I wanted to give my thoughts on the beta and the current changes that have happened since closed beta. If you're interested in hearing from someone with an unhealthy amount of hours in the game before it's even launched, stay tuned and let me know your thoughts on the New World Closed Beta below. So, without further ado, let's get into it. First things first though, this week's New World Wednesday video is partnered with New World Hub, a Discord community hub space for you to connect to community servers for every New World server across all regions. The idea behind it is to make it easier for people to find groups to play with for dungeons, to make it easier for people to recruit to their companies within their servers, and for people to meet new people to play New World with. I personally think it is an awesome idea and a cool project that you should definitely check out. Being able to create stronger communities within servers is a great idea, both to help form bonds outside your company and to further strive you with your rivalries within your server. Whichever server I decide to play on, you can already expect me to be trash talking marauders and syndicate members in there. So, if you think you can handle it, find my server. And be sure to check out the link below if you're interested. So, to be honest with you guys, I don't have a hard script on what I want to talk about. I honestly have a bunch of bullet points on my phone that I'm reading off of and gonna kind of go over and address various items on the New World Open Beta. Overall, I was really happy with the experience though. There's a lot of things I need worked on, but just like in the closed beta, the core game itself is just too good of New World, and I think there's a lot of stuff you can do with it, and I'm really excited to see what all they do. So first things first, I'm going to be talking about what I did in the open beta, my initial thoughts on XP and gameplay, thoughts on performance, and then thoughts on balancing. And the balancing will be both on PVE balancing as well as the infamous PvP scaling balancing. So, first things first, open beta, what did I do? For the open beta, I actually only played about 30 hours. I didn't play that much of the open beta this time around. The closed beta, I had well over that amount, and we'll just keep it there. But the open beta, I didn't want to play as much as I did with the closed beta or anything, mainly because I didn't want to burn out before the launch happened. I didn't want to do anything crazy or grind out high levels just to restart once again. I decided to stick with the idea of just having fun with it. I actually originally thought I was going to do a lot of fishing, but I ended up not doing any fishing. Instead, I decided to do some leveling just to get decent level on a build theory craft that I'm working on, the Vulcan build, which if you haven't seen the creative build videos, check out that series I did. It was one of the builds I did there, so I was kind of just playing around with that and seeing how it felt. To do more specifically, and then I was also running around the world getting shots for lore videos, which if you haven't seen either of those, I've done one on Monarch's Bluffs and one on First Light, and I was getting footage for the upcoming Windsward and Everfall videos. So I ended up leveling to about level 23 and just was running around getting footage of fights and just having fun with some PvP in the open world and doing the wars, but just some open world PvPing and a few other things. I did a few rounds of kind of Townboard quests and faction quests just to see how it felt with the new XP changes, and I kind of went around that route and had some fun with it, and I had a blast. I only played about 30 hours. I spent mostly, I played like a few, maybe 2-3 hours on Friday night, and I played a bunch on Saturday just running around. That's when I mainly did the XP leveling and kind of played through all that stuff, and then Sunday I ran around and got shots for the lore videos and did a bunch of PvP in the open world, and that was about it, and I had a blast. So I had some thoughts of what I experienced as well as what I saw watching other streams. I watched a lot of streamers during this time, especially when I was working. I was constantly watching streamers, just kind of seeing what the general thought and consensus was, and kind of going from bigger names that you might recognize, like, Joshua G and those kind of guys, as well as watching the more smaller niche streamers of New World, like Sir Medieval, for instance. I was a big fan of his streams. I thought they were really entertaining. So from my experience, XP definitely was slower overall for leveling. I still feel the route method, which I have made also a video about, a lot of plugs, my apologies, I still feel like that was a great way to level, even though it was slower. Don't get me wrong, they nerfed Townboards and it was noticeable. But outside the main mission, when you kind of got to that slumps in the 30s and trying to level, it felt like it was still getting your faction board quest, getting your town board quest, and leveling up your settlement to increase your XP ratio, and just running it that way would be the best way to level. It just, even though it was slower, it's still the best way. Just finding a settlement that you want to level in and just working on getting your XP standing up with that settlement to increase your XP rate in that settlement is the best way. And just to get a leveling settlement going, I just commit that way with town board quests and covenant factions or Marauder or Syndicate factions. That seems to be still the best way to go about it. So those are just my thoughts on the XP, but it's definitely a lot slower. But yeah, I ran the route method a few times just to test it out and see how it felt, and I was leveling up pretty fast. Granted, that was like level 18 to like 21 is when I did that, and I leveled up from 18 to 21 in like, I don't know, an hour or two maybe, max 3, but I don't think it was that long. So definitely still a strong way to level up, though a bit slower. Gameplay wise, it still felt like the new world I remembered and enjoyed. I mean, honestly, I had a blast with it. I was having so much fun running around. I was trying my Great Axe Fire Staff build, and while there's some bumps in the road with that, and I can get into that to a later video, that was a lot of fun, and I was having a blast. It was super, almost nostalgic running around like I was back in closed beta, and I really missed the game itself. And the fact, in terms of the gameplay, the mobs felt much harder, which I was actually dying a lot more than I ever did in closed beta, which is a good thing. And yeah, no, I mean, gameplay wise, it felt great. I felt like obviously there's some bugs and stuff, which we'll get to later in the performance talk, but gameplay wise, it was fantastic. I was having a blast. Performance wise, though, it was noticeably worse than closed beta. The FPS issues I never had before, it crashed a few times, and lag issues were really rough. Windsward and Everfall, the actual settlements, like the towns there, were nightmares. I mean, just absolute nightmares. I hated being in those. I had to be in this a lot when I was trying to get footage. And I just was not a big fan of that. And then lastly, the audio bugs were horrendous. I mean, running around and my armor was like making noises like it was like broken or something. And then like there was like the weird audio thing where it get like super quiet and like strange bits of the music would pick up, and that thing, like, that was really rough. I never had those issues in the closed beta, but that kind of stuff are things I'm hopeful that all that will get fixed before launch, if not within the first few days of launch on some initial day 1 or day 2 patches. But a lot of those bugs I'm talking about have been things I've seen a lot on forum posts and everything, so I'm very positive that Amazon Games is aware of them. Lastly, let's talk about balancing in the open beta. Now, there are 2 types of balancing we're going to talk about, one shortly and one a bit more at length. There's PvE and PvP balancing. PvE balancing felt amazing. I mentioned it before, but I truly felt like enemies were a threat, and I had to be smart about how I went about things. Defeating bosses were challenging, and that was nice. It was harder, but I felt so much more rewarded when I was actually able to do it. And a factor of this may also be the fact that the build I ran in the open beta was much less optimized than the build I ran in the closed beta. I was doing a lot more theory crafting with kind of these not really well paired weapons to see how it would work, and kind of playtesting that, so that could also be a factor of that. But I definitely felt like the struggle was real in terms of a lot of mobs, and that was a good thing. I enjoyed that. The PvP, and there's a lot to talk about with PvP. I mentioned before when we read the patch notes that I was super excited about the PvP scaling changes. I am actually a fan of the idea of kind of drawing it back a bit, but not to the extreme that they did in the open beta. I felt in the closed beta, the PvP scaling was too strong. I felt like a lot of matches were a 50-50 ratio in terms of whoever was higher level and lower level. It was still 50-50 for the most part, and who would win and who would lose, up to like maybe 55-45 for like a super higher level difference. Like if it was like a level 60 and a level 20, it'd be like up to 55-45 for the level 60. So I wasn't the biggest fan of that. I felt like that was too balanced. I felt like heavy balanced PvP is more so for instance PvP, and that means, you know, it should be a 50-50 ratio for duels, for wars, for the, you know, the MOBA game at the late game, and for the inevitable arenas. That should all be scaled exactly even. That should be fair as can be, and that should be a blast, right? That should be all skill. And the open world beta, and the open world PvP is where the less scaling should be. That being said, I don't think scaling should be removed in open world PvP. I just felt it shouldn't be as heavy. I felt like that is the part where having higher gear and higher level should be a bit more impactful. And that's an important thing in the MMO. I don't think it should be completely that way. I don't think someone who has 300,000 hours in the game should one-shot a guy who has 1 hour in the game, but he should have the edge. And while in the closed beta it was a little bit like that, I still felt it was too even in that situation. And I feel like it should be more like 60-40 in terms of the advantage. Like 60% of the time, the guy with the higher level will win, 40% of the guy with the lower level will win. And I feel like that makes more sense personally to me on how it should work in terms of open world PvP versus instance PvP. And I felt like in this thing, it was more like 90-10 in terms of higher level. If you were higher than by like 7 levels, then like you just automatically won. And it was really frustrating actually when I was playing, because I started behind. I didn't get to start at the very first day like many people, and I wasn't like a high level when I was starting the PvP. I was in the low 20s running around, and a guy at level 27 would like 2-shot me. And that's just like no fun. And I agree with that, and that should never be the case in an open world. But I don't think it should go all the way back to what closed beta was. I feel like there's a middle ground to be found, and that is going to be the sweet spot that I think will overall make everyone happy. And I think it will be a great way to make the open world PvP feel a bit different than the instance PvP and be kind of a good balance in this too. So I did not enjoy the PvP in the open beta like I did the closed beta. In the closed beta, I was constantly running around and fighting in the open world just non-stop. I was doing it every day. I would do PvE missions and level up a bit in the afternoon, and in the evening I would run PvP quests for 5 hours. Like, no exaggeration, I was doing it non-stop. I fought outside Windsward for a few hours here and there over the weekend, but it was not that enjoyable, and I was struggling to make myself do it. So hopefully they make these changes and pull it back closer to what it was in the closed beta, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be all the way back. I think it can be a bit softer than what it was. But we'll see how that goes with that, and I'm really curious to see what they're going to do. They've acknowledged that they've heard about this, so again, that gives me hope back to my prior point that Amazon Games has done a great job of acknowledging issues. It's just a matter of seeing if they do anything about it. Overall, I didn't get to play too much, partly on purpose and partly due to me doing other things, but I greatly enjoyed the beta. End of the day, it seems like Amazon Games is listening to the community the best it can and trying to shape the game well. Hopefully launch is better in terms of performance, and they fix some issues with the balancing. But overall, the open beta was a lot of fun. It was a nice way for me to kind of appease my addiction for a few days, and yeah, I can't wait to launch. Hopefully it continues to improve like Amazon Games has shown that it is willing to do, and we'll see what happens on launch. Thank you for listening. And also check out that Discord community. It is sick. Peace out.